I love books. Reading is a big part of my life, especially to understand the world that we live in now. So far in 2020, I read around 98 books. Without counting Choupi fait un bonhomme de neige, Bébé loup a perdu son doudou, and Aubin petit lapin, which I read around 50 times to my son. I know that videos about books don't make tons of views, but I'm talking to all the bookworms out there who want to read in French and go beyond Le Petit Prince. Here are the books that I loved in 2020. The first one is La Discretion by Faiza Again. It is a very tender novel about a couple from Algeria. The man came for work in the 70s and the woman followed as the wife, and they had children in the 80s. And it is so good. You follow the story of each member of the family and you understand much better what it means to be a Muslim, what it is to be an Algerian, what it is to be an immigrant in France now and then. And I couldn't stop reading it, so I highly recommend you read it. Lots of people did, and I already bought it twice as Christmas presents. My second recommendation is Chavirre by Lola Lafont. It is a much darker book because it is the story of Cleo, who is 16 and dreams about becoming a professional dancer. She doesn't have enough money to join bigger dance schools, and she is met by a very rich woman who offers her to join her foundation. The foundation is supposed to give money to teenagers who want to achieve a dream. As it happens, it is a pedocriminal network, and she's enrolled to bring more teenagers to the network in exchange for money. And we follow her through her life until she's 25 and a professional dancer, but she's been living with this guilt all her life. It is a fantastic book. Lots of people talked about it, and I highly recommend you read it. My third recommendation is lighter. It is Le Cœur Synthétique by Chloé Delhomme. We follow the hero who becomes single at 46. It is a book about what it means to be a single woman at 46 in Paris, in very intellectual circles. She works in the book industry and she meets lots of interesting people, but the question is, what is she actually looking for in her life? So we follow her through her life and we see what choices she makes. We meet her friends, and what I loved is that she is in very intellectual circles that I would never get into, and it is so interesting to read about all these people in her life. So not everybody loved it because there are lots of references in there, but if you're curious about the French Parisian literary life, I highly recommend you read it. If you're not, there is one last recommendation for fiction, is Les Morues by Titu Lecoq. It is a novel about a group of girlfriends called Les Morues, literally the cods, like the fish, and one of them died. And the friends don't know why. The question is to solve what happened and to follow them in their everyday life as women in Paris. It is very high quality chick lit if you're looking for this kind of novels, and I really enjoyed reading it, and I would read this one again. If you're looking for shorter books, I could not recommend more Annie Ernaux. I read lots of her books this year, and I buy them but I save them for later because they're so good. These are all the ones I own, so a lot. And she writes about her life in the 70s and 80s and after. She writes very short books about usually an event or a topic in her life. And it is so good. I don't even have words to say how good it is. She talks about her dad and her mom who were in La Provence, and she moved to Paris to become an intellectual, and she became a French teacher, and she became a writer. And each book, I always need a week to recover because it is so dense, even though it's really short. These are very short books. They're for adults because she covers adult content. One of them is about her abortion when abortion was illegal. This one is really good. It's L'événement. This one, really good. But again, all of them are really good. And what's so interesting if you're interested in French culture is that she writes about her everyday life. So you can see references and events and everything is true. So Annie Ernaux is absolutely fantastic. At last, I will cover some nonfiction that I loved in 2020 if you're interested in France beyond the clichés of Emily in Paris, for example. The first one that I just kept telling all my friends about is Le Prix de la Démocratie by Julia Cagé, which has been translated in The Price of Democracy. Easy. It is about how democracy is financed in France, in Europe, and even a bit in the US. It is really good to try to understand with facts how rich people are actually voting more than poor people because of the mechanism of how politics are paid for. So good. The second one is Letra Adama, which is not from 2020, but I read only this year. It is about the whole story about Black Lives Matter in France, and also how police brutality is ignored in France and racism. Really, really good to understand the concept in the French culture as well. The third one is Le Génie Lesbian by Alice Coffin, if you heard of her in the media. It's usually by people who haven't read the book. Excellent book. Again, she's a journalist, a brilliant woman, and she talks about how minority, especially lesbians, are represented in the media in the French culture. Really, really good. And the last one is Onatus, Un Ami Noir, which is the most recent I read by François Gémen. It's a fantastic book about migrations in France and also racism. I just don't know what else to say apart from these books are fantastic. I highly recommend you read them if you care about French culture beyond, again, just the cliché of the Eiffel Tower, because France is not the country of ratatouille only. I would love it if you could tell me in the comments below which book you read in French this year or which one you would love to read in 2021. Tell me in the comments and we can talk about it. Allez, salut!